Hey everyone, it's Types, and Chaos Rising is right around the corner, coming in around 2 weeks. And if you don't know what that means that pre-releases are right around the corner, starting maybe today. I think tomorrow is when they'll like kind of start. If you don't know anything about pre-releases, they are, as the name kind of implies, something happens before a set comes out, like 2 weeks or 1 week before. Generally, I think it's going to be 2 weeks, but check with your local store there. And they are an event where you pay and then you get cards and you play with those cards against other people. You'll get a pre-release kit. Your pre-release kit is going to be made up of a 40 card deck from the cards aren't all from the set, but will contain a promo, which I guess technically also isn't from the set, but of a card that isn't the set. I'll show you that in just a second here. Actually, I'm not going to be looking at the actual promo arts. I think I've talked about that in a previous video. We actually have known that for a long time due to some like weird stuff. But anyways, we are going to see, a promo is kind of the focal point of the deck, and you'll get a 40 card deck there, and then you'll also get 4 packs of Chaos Rising. The decks are going to be pretty decent straight out of the box there. You can add some more cards, and maybe you should, but maybe not. It'll kind of depend on what you pull there, and I'm going to be going over them. I obviously haven't played them yet. I'm posting this and recording this before they happen. So yeah, I have the 4 kits here. I'm pretty sure I saw them online. So someone tell me in the description, like confirm that they're actually what they are from what you've seen. If they aren't, I'll like leave a description note. But I'm pretty sure they're right. And also, I am going to be going through each of the cards. Obviously, the main Pokemon there is going to be like the most important thing to watch out for, especially playing against these decks. Ultimately, this video, release tournaments are just supposed to be pretty chill, pretty fun, and honestly a really good way to get into the game as well. If you're wondering, is this a good first experience? I'd say yeah, 100%. It's really cool for a new player, and you'll probably play against or with some newer players there. What's in Chaos Rising is Ninja Spinner, Japan's expansion there, plus these 3 cards, Mega Glade EX, Crocodile EX, and Adversity Insurance. Of these, the 2 EXs presumably are never going to hit the board. Ninja Spinner doesn't have previous evolutions to Mega Glade. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure you can't actually play this. Like, can you not play either of these? You might not be able to play either of those. I could be wrong on that. Someone tell me in the comment section. You certainly won't see any of those. I can't imagine though. And then you could play this. You could treat this in the play. I guess that's a thing I'll mention. But anyways, then Adversity Insurance, kind of interesting. Drawing 3 cards if you're hit for weakness. In terms of the decks, Crobat, yeah, Crobat's weak to lightning. There's Ampharos, which is lightning, so that could matter theoretically, I guess. But I don't know. It's a trainer worth mentioning. I'll go through all the trainers. There's one trainer that you definitely want to be keeping an eye out for, and there are a handful of others that are decent as well there, though I don't think they're a huge deal. But anyways, let's just hop right into the decks here. I guess I'll start with the promos themselves. So first of all, I guess we'll look at Goodra. Goodra is it's a stage 2. They're all stage 2s, by the way. So Goodra here has the ability Slimy Slip. If it's in the active, when your opponent retreats, they flip a coin. If this Pokemon is in play, when your opponent's active retreats, then they flip a coin. If tails, they don't. They don't discard the energy. This is like something. It also doesn't stack. I don't think it's going to be super meaningful during pre-release. You're not going to see much gusting. You'll see some retreating, I guess, probably earlier on, but I don't think this is super meaningful. And like standard, this would be the thing that you're kind of looking at the card for. But then you have Dragon Pulse here for Water and Psychic. You do 160, discard the top card of your deck. All 4 of the stage 2s have 160 HP or less there, so this will be knocking out everything, which is pretty nice. Discarding the top card of your deck isn't like too bad of a downside. I guess I'll look at the previous evolutions as well. Sliggoo here, 70 for 2, and Goomy 30 for 2, and also healing 30 from it, which is kind of cool, I guess. But ultimately, previous evolutions aren't anything super spectacular there. And they are 2 types of energy. So that is something to keep in mind. You are playing 2 types of energy, which is definitely a little awkward. It's not something that I'd be super overly worried about, but it is something that you to keep an eye out for and kind of make sure that you're playing enough of both types. And also in terms of adding another type, that's going to be a lot clunkier there. But you're already into both those types. So in terms of Pokemon you add, you might have more to kind of choose from there. Then we have the next one here, which is going to be Crobat. Crobat is the lowest HP. I believe the other 3 all have 160. But Crobat has an interesting ability here, Nighttime Maneuvers. It's definitely a pretty cool card in my opinion. Once during your turn, if it's in the active, you can search your deck for any card, and then you don't reveal it because it's any card there. Then you put it on top of your deck, then shuffle. And then for 1 darkness, you do 80 confusion and poison. If you don't know how that works, poison is an extra damage counter between turns both ways. So that's going to be pretty nice there, just allowing you to get some extra damage. It's going to start off at 90 there then. I don't think there's any way to stop poison. I mean, you can retreat unless you're unless you're Goodra, in which case you might not be able to retreat. But you're not going to get Goodra and Crobat. That would be kind of absurd. Each kit, by the way, only has one of the promos. Theoretically, you could pull it as a like the whole line in a pack. But anyways, and then confusion is on a coin flip when you go to attack. If you're confused on a tails there, you're going to not be able to attack. You then take 30 damage as well. So confusion is kind of nasty. Something you'll probably be looking to retreat out of here. And yeah, is definitely something I don't know. I generally retreat out of it. There are some people who generally attack into it. It obviously depends on the situation there, but that is definitely something you're going to be watching out for. Also, sorry if there's any background noise at the time I'm recording this. But yeah, definitely a card that obviously in terms of raw damage, it's less, but it is only 1 energy there, and it's definitely kind of coin flip dependent. But yeah, something you want to be aware of going with and against this. And in terms of playing around it, you want to, if you're in an advantageous position with, or I guess against this deck, then you want to, set up a bench Pokemon you can also attack with. That's generally good advice, but especially here because you are going to be confused, potentially. And that, means that you might not be able to attack. There's also the Golbat, which is immune to basics. This isn't something that is super good here because obviously all of the decks are stage 2 decks in terms of their main Pokemon. That being said, if you do want to tech in some random basic as like your big attacker for whatever reason, which I guess wasn't a tech at that point, maybe don't do that. I wouldn't say this really changes things too much, but it is a kind of cool card in standard. Also, the basic has Fear Tree and Confuses, which is kind of nice there. Confusion, as I said, is pretty nice. Obviously, as I said as well, they're looking at evolution Pokemon there. This is going to be probably attacking pretty early on, and so when you attack with this, you're going to confuse, and then they'll probably just evolve, and then they're not confused. So it's not really doing too much there, but it is, it could be good. Also, it does have low HP, which is bad. So you're looking at this Pokemon line that is cheaper with lower HP, so that's definitely something to consider there. Then we have the next line, which is the Ampharos. Ampharos is actually probably my favorite of them. Not the best necessarily, but definitely the coolest for me. I love hand-size stuff. With the ability to synchronize Pulse, if you and your opponent have the same number of cards in your hand, this does 80 more damage to your opponent's active. Flash Bolt here is going to be doing 140. Cannot attack back-to-back turns. A bit of a pain there. If you don't have the same number of cards in your hand, you're not taking a one-shot on the stage 2s. Well, I guess you are in Crobat. You're like absolutely obliterating it there. But against the other ones, you're not. So you do want to try to match hand size. There's some stuff to do there. And playing against this, you want to be aware of this as well. Your opponent will be trying to match hand size. I guess I will show the kits in a moment. But there's some like fun stuff with Flaffy and Relicanth in standard with Ampharos you could do, but you can't do it here. There is no Relicanth. Also, Flaffy does item lock for 2, doing 40. Item lock is probably not very good. I'm not gonna lie. I suppose playing against this deck, you are going to want to potentially play items earlier so you don't get item locked and put in a bad position. But I don't know, it's not something huge. There is some hand disruption. I will also mention that there, and this deck does play some in the kit there, so they will have that. So just kind of keep that in mind, and weigh the different options and stuff like that. The basic here also paralyzes on a coin flip, so that will stop them from attacking, which is kind of cool. Again, they could just evolve, kind of like with confusion there, but something to kind of consider. But ultimately, Ampharos, you're trying to match hand size, which I think is interesting to play with and against. We'll take a look at the different like supporter packages and things like that. But Ampharos is definitely a card here that is interesting. Obviously has some more stuff kind of going into it, which could be kind of bad. Then we have the last one, which is going to be Delphox here. Delphox has the ability of Flare Magic. Once during a turn, you can discard a basic fire energy from your hand to use this ability, and then draw until you have 7 cards in hand. Discarding basic fire from it is, basic fire from your hand is, it's not like too bad, too hard to do. But obviously, it's like a draw card here on a stage 2. And in terms of getting what you want, obviously, Crobat's going to get you that card better. This also might not even draw you cards if you have a full hand, but it could draw you a ton of cards as well. So it's definitely not a bad ability, but it is also kind of late game. And once you have the Pokemon, you have some of what you need. Anyways, Energy Storm here for 2 fire does 30 for each energy attached to all Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponents. This is the big thing to keep track of for both players. Again, looking at that number 160, or I guess we'll look at 130 first. Then you're going to need 5 energies in play. You'll obviously have 2 on this. You could probably have 3. That feels pretty reasonable. Then your opponent might have 2. I guess Crobat attacks for 1. The other ones all attack for 2. So if your opponent has the minimum amount of energies there, which again, if you're playing against this, you want to have generally as few energies as you can have in play to, reduce the damage this deck's doing. And also in terms of the mirror, it's going to be kind of interesting there, balancing that out. There's not too much you can do to like tilt it in your favor because you're doing the same amount of damage, but it is going to be interesting to see how that develops. But anyways, if you have if your opponent has 2 and they have 160 HP, then you're going to need 4 energies on your side of the board. So that's what you're looking for. And same thing if they have 1 energy and 130 HP. So good 4 energies is what you're looking for there. Obviously, the more the better, essentially in all situations, except for the mirror there. And obviously, the energies do allow you to draw as well. So if you have if you're kind of running low, maybe don't overcommit, like don't attach your 10th energy or something absurd like that. Not that that would realistically ever happen, but ultimately, this Pokemon can do big damage. It is obviously a little sketchy. In terms of the previous evolutions, I don't think they accelerate, do they? No, that does not accelerate. That discards an energy. Doing 80 for 2, I actually didn't realize that's how much it did. That's pretty decent there. Being able to take some knockouts. I don't remember the HPs. I'm going to flip through the kits now. Oh, they're not all sorted. But anyways, so it's not really one-shotting the stage ones. It one-shots the Golbat there. It one-shots all the basics. Or it one-shots all the basics. So doing 80 there, pretty decent. Fun again is Call for Family, kind of cool for setting up as well. Then we have the other lines in each of the kits. So Ampharos has an Emolga. I don't even remember what these do, to be honest. I don't think they're super good. Emolga here searches for energies. I will say this increases your hand size, so that's interesting. And Sky Return, I guess, also increases your hand size, 30. Then you return this Pokemon and all cards attached to your hand. This allows for some theoretically cool shenanigans with hit and run, allowing you to, like, give it into something else or something like that. It's not super good, though. You do have to return it to your hand. Keep that in mind. If you're playing against this or with this, you have to return it. It's not a choice there. That is very important because you're not always going to want to return this because, I mean, like, literally, if this is your only Pokemon going second, you can't attack with this, you will lose. Theoretically, you could tie, I guess. I'm not sure in the ordering of that. If someone knows if this would like knock out your opponent's only Pokemon, would you win? Would you lose? Would you tie? I'm not sure on that one. But ultimately, you'll probably lose when you attack with this if it's your only Pokemon in the early game. It also like removes energy from your board, and it's kind of not super good. Minor Errand running is okay-ish, I suppose, but ultimately Emolga is not super good. But obviously, a Pokemon you will presumably be using some there, and doesn't have Free Retreat either, which Emolga sometimes does. Then you look at the Crobat line. This one runs this Quillfish. Quillfish here has the ability Poison Point. In the active and damage, then your opponent's active is now poisoned. Poison doesn't stack, would be the word. Like if you poison them again, which could happen by attacking with a Crobat after, it's not going to do extra poison there. But this is nice here. And then Venoshock here doing for 1 darkness 30. It also has how much HP? It has 90, which is pretty good for a basic. And then it does 80 or 30 more, doing a total of 80 if your opponent's active is poisoned, which again, it will be through either your ability or I guess attacking with Crobat. That is possible there. It has 1 retreat. This one is weak to fighting, which I think is good because there is the Ampharos deck there. There isn't a fighting deck, so that's like kind of cool. And you do have different weaknesses between Crobat and Quillfish. Crobat does resist fighting as well if you somehow happen to be playing against fighting. Ultimately, Quillfish is honestly a pretty good basic. I'm not gonna lie. Hitting into it is kind of a pain, and you're going to get knocked out presumably if you hit into it because you're going to be swinging for 80 with Quillfish, and then you're also poisoned and you take 20 from poison, so that's going to be 100 damage there. Also, if you can send up Quillfish early, you should definitely start this Pokemon because you're obviously setting up a stage 2 behind it, and stage 2 only attacks for 1 energy, as I said, so you can probably retreat into it. Also, there's like a lot of switching. I've talked about like retreating or like special conditions, and there are switches to get out of that. I don't think special conditions, I don't know, they can be impactful, and there's also like the retreat stopping thing, but I think every deck has 2 switch or switch-like cards in it there, which again we will get to. But anyways, this is going to be pretty strong. Even if they knock it out and you're not swinging with it, you can swing with something else. You can swing with the Crobat. Be swinging for literally the same amount of damage as well, which is like kind of, I don't know if that's good, bad, funny, or unfortunate, but it's certainly something. Honestly, Quillfish is quite good here. Then we have the Delphox, which plays this kind of weird Ninetales. Ninetales has the attack here. The basic also burns, which is kind of cool. But anyways, Ninetales here says you can do 70 for 2. That's like okay, not like crazy good. talk about the Delphox, or sorry, the Braixen doing 84 2 and then discarding an energy, and like there's some other ones that do decent damage for 2. It's fine. But then Nine-Tailed Reflect, weird attack name. I don't even know if that's the right translation. But anyways, what you do is you move all damage counters from one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to their active. This doesn't this is not one of those attacks that heals your Pokemon and moves it to your opponents. No, it doesn't do that. It moves damage from their bench to their active. Kind of weird. The deck is aiming for big knockouts, but if you fall short with Delphox, I think that's kind of the idea there. You're not really applying much pressure. Like you look at Steady Fire Breathing and Fire Blast. Fire Blast is, I mean, could set stuff up. Ultimately, this is an attack, an attachment, and a pretty, I mean, not like a huge commitment using Nine-Tailed Reflect, but it's a moderate commitment and not something I'd really be looking to use very much there. Will-O-Wisp was going to be something I'm looking to use a bit more, and honestly not that good. I'm not going to lie. I don't think this Ninetales is super good for the fact that it's going to take up a bunch of deck slots. We'll talk about some other cards to include and stuff like that, but something to consider there. We have Goodra here also running this Meowstic line. Esper here. Oh, if you played Emma, you do 60 more. I didn't know that. It does run 1 Emma. 70 for 1 is obviously quite good. I've been talking about 70 for 2 being like kind of okay. 70 for 1 on a basic is obviously very good there. And you got, what, 60 HP. Otherwise, you're just swinging for 10. Then Trick Step for 1 psychic, 1 color to move an energy from your opponent's active to one of their bench Pokemon. And you do 80 there. 80 for 2 is obviously going to be pretty nice there. In terms of the, also you're a different type, which is kind of cool. Probably not good, but it's a thing. Keep that in mind. You're going to be hit for weakness by like darkness, which could matter. There is darkness. And I guess, yeah, it does matter for Crobat. It moves into one-shot range, but it's barely out of it. But anyways, it would be barely out of it if it didn't have weakness. Anyways, Trick Step, though, doing 80 is like fine. Move the energy could matter. It's just more of like a win more type of card where your opponent will just be like kind of in an position. I don't know. Honestly, most decks as well are going to like not really. If you look at standard and you see attacks like this, like with like Elgyem in standard, which is it was good, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen it played in a while or played with it in a while, but that is interesting, allowing you to move an energy off of one of their Pokemon to a Pokemon that really doesn't want it. But in Prerelease here, I think most of their Pokemon on the bench will certainly not mind the energy. There'll be times when it's better or worse. In terms of playing against this, try to put yourself in a situation where if you get hit by Trick Step, you force your opponent to have to make a difficult decision there. Also, you don't have to move an energy, I will say that. So your opponent doesn't have to move the energy because there'll definitely be times when it's bad. I mean, if you get the knockout, you don't want to move the energy, almost certainly, unless there's something kind of weird going on there. Ultimately, Meowstic is like, okay. There's some interesting depth there. In terms of the basic as well, the Esper, that is definitely a scary card, honestly. Like, you could just kind of win instantly. Maybe not win instantly, but be in a very good position. So those are the Pokemon you need to watch out for. Obviously, you have the main stage 2s going through the different cards in the decks. Some of these are new cards. The trainers, all the Pokemon are new. I say like most of the trainers are not. And then you obviously have basic energies there. We see Lilies here in the Ampharos one, Dawn, Judge, Surfer, Canary is the supporter lineup. Canary and Dawn are quite good for getting you set up, and they also do increase your hand size. Judge is a disruptive supporter. Obviously, it also can help your opponent. So, be careful. I'd say in pre-release format, Judge helping your opponent is definitely something you need to be a lot more careful of than in standard. Not that you don't need to be careful of it in standard, but it'll probably be easier to tell, though, when your opponent doesn't have much going on. Not always, though. Then that will put you into equal hand size. Obviously, it puts your opponent to 4, and it puts you to 4 as well. You can't play anything after you play the Judge, because then you'd not be at equal hand size, assuming you want to be at equal hand size. Also, if your opponent is getting a really big hand, I mean, it's just generally good, right? It's Judge, it's hand disruption. And then there's also, I don't know, there's Surfer as at each deck. I believe I have 2 switches. It says a switch and a Surfer. You got some Pokemon Search there. And does each deck have a rare candy? No, 2 of them do. Delphox and Ampharos have a rare candy, so keep that in mind as well, playing against them. What exactly are you going to do about it? Nothing, probably. Obviously, using it early is probably good, but it's not something you can get consistently. I don't think either of the decks can search it out. Yeah. What does the basic do? It finds, like, Fennekin, yeah, it finds more basic. So, yeah, definitely something to remember that there are rare candies in some of these decks, the Ampharos and the Delphox ones. Just 1 copy, though. Then there is the next deck, the Crobat one. I've talked about the Pokemon. You see Iris is fighting Spirit. You just got another card. Jointly have 6 in hand. Kind of interesting there. Grimsley's move is really interesting. Looking at the top 7, putting a Darkness Pokemon you find there onto your bench. It's going to allow you to cheat out Crobat. and I will talk about some of the other Pokemon you can pair it with. I guess I should probably go through some of the other cards in the set quickly first, because there's some I do want to talk about. The big one is Special Red card. Special Red card is the best card in the set in Standard, and also probably pretty good in pre-release here, saying you can only play this if your opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining. You start with 4, right? You get 40 card decks and 4 prizes. So this is going to be active most of the game, especially because I think compared to Standard, you're probably going to see games being at a more potentially even pace. I don't know. It kind of depends on pre-release games and obviously on Standard games, but you will see a pretty even pace. So this will be active a lot of the game. Then your opponent shuffles a hand, puts it on the bottom, draws 3. So a decent, honestly, a pretty good disruptive card. It's not a card that is like super broken. I mean, I was kind of talking about Judge being like a decent disruptive card. You need to be a little careful of it. Obviously, once your opponent has taken a prize, then they've done something. They presumably have some type of threat. So playing this card is going to be pretty good. You want to kind of use it at the right time. You're not like trying to disrupt your opponent at a boss for game because, no boss for game. But yeah, definitely a pretty good card. Looking interesting in Ampharos. I wanted to kind of mention it specifically for that reason, but also in terms of playing against decks, keep in mind your opponent may have hand disruption, and this is a card I would definitely put in any deck if I pulled it. Certainly, if I pulled 2 copies, I'd presumably put 2 copies. If I pulled more, then I'm, maybe thinking about it a little more. But yeah, definitely a pretty good card. Then Book of Transformation is funny, but quite bad. And then these other ones interesting. Oh, Roxas Performance Retreat locks poisoned Pokemon. This is not in the Crobat kit. It's not very good. I think the card's like quite bad. I'm not gonna lie. Just like in general. So I wouldn't play it, but it is a card that does exist. And then Emma here, your opponent reveals their hand, draw cards equal to number of Pokemon in their hand. Specifically looking at this for the Goodra kit, you're going to see that it's is very good with the Esper, doing good damage there, and then is you do see their hand, which is interesting, and then you probably draw a handful of cards. I suppose also thin your hand at a Pokemon, that can be a good thing to do. Be kind of interesting if you're like in a situation of like with Pokepad, do you want to thin? How does it interact with hand disruption? How does it interact with Emma? Ultimately, I don't think these things matter too much, but they are interesting things to think about there. And then I guess Prism Tower is kind of cool. You can discard 2 to draw 1. Obviously, it's the same. Each player can use it. And yeah, definitely a pretty cool card there. Not a super, super good card. Kind of interesting when you think about Ampharos, maybe, but that's about it there. I guess it could be used with Delphox as well. I suppose the Fire Energy can be used as well with Breaks in to like recover it. It's not a very good card though. And then, you see some other trainers and stuff that aren't the right types there. But anyways, moving back to Crobat, it lets you look at, with Grimms's move, you look at the top 7, put a Darkest Pokemon you find there onto your bench, and shuffle the other cards back. You cannot use it turn 1. This can allow you to cheat Crobat into play turn 2. I guess Goodra's the only deck that can't cheat the stage 2 into play, but obviously it's a little hard to do. I suppose as well, you can also, I don't know if this is the idea, but you can use Crobat, put another Crobat on top, and then use Grimsley's move to cheat that Pokemon into play. I mentioned Crocodile EX. This does something. It's here. It's like presumably pretty good if you get into play. It's not like completely broken. Honestly, it's fine. But if you get into play, that's pretty good. And you can cheat into play with the Grimsleys. And then there's also Skank isn't super good. Garbler also isn't super good. So there aren't really good Pokemon to cheat into play, but you can cheat Darkness Pokemon into play. You got Urbane, which is draw 3. Pretty forgettable card there. We again see the Surfer and the Switch. 1 Lilies, 4 Pokepad, a Butterberry Poffin, and 2 Punk Helmets as well. Honestly, just like hitting into Quillfish is going to be so rough. You're just going to like disintegrate. Because you're going to take 4 more with Punk Helmet. That's definitely going to help some of the math there when you look at Crobat just not for enough all the time. In terms of big threats, though, I don't think you see too much you're looking at. I guess I should look at colorless Pokemon as well if there's anything super good. I don't really think there is. I guess I will mention Dragalge. EX could theoretically go into the, or Mega Dragalge could go into this deck, and it's kind of cool there. Probably wouldn't put into anything else. Oros isn't super good. Watchog, super good. Chichio EX is probably pretty good if you pull it. It's not a broken card, but it's pretty good for pre-release. And that's it. The set's also not that big. I don't think I said that, but it's not that big. Then we have the Delphox kit here. Here we see it runs Waitress. This looks the top 6 and attaches a basic energy you find there to one of your Pokemon. And then you also see, Lilies, Hilda. Hilda's super good here. I'm not gonna. I mean, it's okay. It's not a terrible card. But like hitting the energy isn't super useful. Certainly you'll take it. But anyways, you got Pokebad, Buddy Poffin, Switch, again, that one candy. And then you also have Energy Recycler, kind of interesting there. You're not like necessarily churning through energies. I mean, you kind of are with your ability and maybe with Braixen's attack, but definitely an interesting choice here. I definitely feel like this kit like seems super good. I will kind of rank the kits. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter the ranking. You want to obviously you work with what you have, and that's why I don't usually do that. And also, it's like a little hard to judge at times, but and people have different experiences from time to time as well. But anyways, you got some of that stuff going on there. Waitress is going to be used to accelerate. Obviously, extra energy means extra damage with Delphox, so that's like the thing you're looking at. The Goodra kit, we talked about the stuff. There is Emma here. Emma is just a supporter I would probably play if I pulled it, and I would definitely play it in this kit because of the Esper. I suppose if you pulled Esper, would I ever play it? I mean, here I definitely could consider it, but another kit I probably would. In terms of teching stuff, I'll talk about that at the end, how much you can tech into the different kits, but you got the Emma, you got Dawn as well here. Obviously, Goodra, pretty good. You willing to hit the energies? There's one energy search, but in terms of hitting the right types, it can be a little awkward. I wouldn't worry about it too much, I guess, but I'm not super sure. Then yeah, you got the two switch here. You got Pokepads, Buddy Poffins. Obviously, you're going to see a bunch of Pokemon search in all these kits, right? So. And that's something that is good. There's not too much to say about it. Obviously, you play it if you have it to get your Pokemon. It's Pokemon search, but there is a bunch of it. The train lamps are pretty good in the decks in general. Looking at what you could tech into the Goodra deck, you could obviously theoretically tech in something that's psychic or water. I'm trying to think if there's anything good. I suppose I'll look through. So some Hey Greninja. Oh, there's this really funny Delibird that accelerates. This Delibird actually pretty sick in Delphox. I completely forgot about this card. Accelerating. So it says both players may attach up to 3 energy from the hand to their Pokemon anyway, like your opponent attaches first. It's a goofy card, but definitely pretty funny there. Octillery here, probably not a card I'd play. Keldeo is okay, I guess. It's a bigger basic. And then there's some other cards depending exactly what you play or what you pull. Maybe you could play it. There's also a bunch of Deoxys, which you could toss into your deck. Pretty funny cards. Not super good. Definitely, I wouldn't play this one. This one, Walt's abilities stops what damage from abilities. That's really good. Yes, there's some other stuff going on, but this might auto win. So if you pull this, actually, maybe you play this. This is very good. This Deoxys is pretty good as well. Or pretty good in like Goodra. It's not an amazing card. And I probably wouldn't play this one, but you could. I guess Mega Flow EX I'd probably play if I pulled it. I mean, it's not a particularly good card. It's pretty bad, I'm not going to lie. But in terms of this format, it's like okay. Obviously, you want to play it later on. There's some other stuff that goes with it, but it's not very good. I might play some more Meow Sticks or some other Psychic Pokemon. Some kind of cool cards, but mostly not super impressive there. Looking at Lightning, there's nothing else. And I looked at Darkness. Looking at Fire, is there anything else? There's Ho-Oh. This isn't particularly good. It can like recover some Pokemon and like, kind of do some stuff. It's not super good. And Mega Pyro EX also. I mean, if you pull it, if you pull a Mega, especially, that's probably something you're looking to play there. I'm not going to talk too much about evolution lines. You'll kind of see what you have and need to kind of judge it, but obviously those are kind of hard to find, kind of hard to use, and yeah, they're ultimately something that is a lot more on a case-by-case basis there that will come up a lot less, especially going through specific ones there. For example, like just random ones in other types, like in Claydol or something like that. But anyways, so in terms of stuff you might want to tech in, it kind of depends what you pull. There isn't like too many crazy things, but you kind of figure that out once you see what you get. Obviously, in terms of pulling extra Pokemon, I didn't say this. You can play more than 4 of a Pokemon. Not necessarily a terrible idea. Not something you necessarily have to do either. If you like pull another Mareep, you don't like have to play the 5th Mareep. Because you got 2 Buddy Poffins, you got an Ultra Ball, you got 3 Pokepad, you have 2 Dawn, you have a Canary. That's a lot of outs, and you already have the 4 Mareeps. So I don't think you necessarily need to do it, but you could. Certainly pulling more of the evolution lines. Generally, I would play that there. I would almost never completely rework the kit. You could, if you pull again like some Mega or some like big EX or something like that that feels really good and requires a big rework. That's a consideration. Maybe generally it's not super good to do, but it is interesting and something that you might see as well. Keep in mind that might be something to play against. In terms of the gameplay, I think it'll be kind of interesting seeing interactions between some of the special conditions. like hand size stuff. So I'm excited for this. I think this will be better than last time. I had the fossil kit, and that was so many mulligans. So hopefully that doesn't happen here. You gotta go check out basics. Again, you might want to cut some of the basics as well. Like Emolga's not that good. To probably play Mareeps over Emolga's. And then Quillfish is so good, I think. Ninetales is super mid, and some interesting stuff in the Goodra kit, definitely. Overall, I think this is a pretty cool pre-release, but tell me down below your thoughts in the comment section. If I missed anything, if you think I did that, leave that in the comment section, and especially your thoughts after you play it as well. And if you're not playing it, I hope you're excited for the set as well. Playing it this once it fully comes out in a handful of weeks. But I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. Huge shout out to my YouTube members as well for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot. But I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.